Ohuhu kindly sent me this set of their new alcohol markers, and I really wanted to try them out. So I very enthusiastically got my sketchbook out and then froze. What should I draw today? What can I draw? Blank. And this, for me as an artist, it's weird because every day I see things I want to paint or draw. But I think sometimes with the sketchbook, because a blank page gives you endless possibilities, all the ideas I have merge into like this avalanche and I just draw a blank. So today, yes, I'm going to share with you ideas to fill your sketchbook pages, but also I'm going to share ways in which we can sort through our brains to just pick something to draw. Welcome to my channel. My name is Paula. I'm a full-time artist. And if you're not new, welcome back. Let's get creative.
The first thing we'll do to stop staring at a blank sketchbook is to simply look out of the window. Yes, this is my first tip, to just look out your window. And I know you're going to say, but Paula, I look out of my window daily and it's so uninspiring. The view is the same and blah, blah, blah. But let's try to find something, or let's try to see what we always see differently. For example, I see the same landscape out of my window all the time, and although it's beautiful, it's the same. Oh, I like that tree. It's so basic. I love that tree. But back to the landscape. What if I try to recreate it in different colors? Let's see what happens with warm colors only. As I sketch my landscape, think of whatever you see out of your window. You might live in an apartment and the only thing you see is the wall of the building next door, but maybe focus on its window and draw that. Or look up or down to see what's there. A light pole, a pigeon. We're just looking for a tiny bit of inspiration. Anything just to start drawing. I finished sketching my view and then I wanted to go for a little bit of a gradient on the sky. So I'm using both yellows on this. Now, I have to tell you, this paper at first, it was a little bit frustrating because you can't really see the color. As you can see, when I first put the alcohol marker down, it goes darker. This paper does not allow bleed through, so I guess that's why it gives you this kind of weird dark color. I don't know what it's made of, but it makes it so dark. I was getting annoyed, but I decided to let it dry and trust the freaking process and carry it on, adding a bit of orange to the clouds and putting down the base colors of the rest of the landscape, using oranges and pinks for the mountains and the foliage, which is something I've never done before actually. Now that the sky is dry, it looks very different, and I had a better idea on how the colors went down and how to fix it. It's a bit of a guessing game, but eventually I got the hang of it. I did try to speed the drying process with my heat gun, but that didn't really work well. It just warped the paper too much and it did not speed things up. So yeah, you have to be patient. And as I was being patient myself, I decided to add more details onto the landscape. I usually don't use the chisel side of my markers because I use them mostly for coloring, but I found that for sketching, it's a dream to use this side. It's like more juicy on this paper especially, and it allows you to be super painterly, so I was happy with that. When the sky dried once again, I went back to give it more details, and I did the same thing with the foreground, adding more marks to make the colors look like trees or foliage. To finish it, I decided to get my Ohuhu coloring pencils and add more details. I worked on the clouds a little bit more with the same colors, and I decided to add scribble lines on top of the landscape to give it more character and sketchiness. Again, here I'm trying to interpret the same thing I see every day in a different way. When I was happy with my mark making, I tried to even out the wonky square I drew in the beginning. So I went back in with the markers to fix it, and that was it. This is my first sketchbook page of the day and my first idea on how to try to come up with something to draw. Before moving to the second tip, I want to use this same one to focus on a single thing. Remember that basic tree? Well, I just had to draw it. I know it's the simplest of trees and it's been trimmed into a super symmetrical and boring shape, but I really actually wanted to draw it, and I also wanted to show you how you can literally draw anything no matter how boring it seems. So I'm back with my markers, and again I'm changing the colors from the real thing. I'm using blues, purples, and teal to sketch the tree. Again, I am using the chisel side of the markers because I like the sketchy watercolor feel I can create with that side. I drew a very basic tree. I wasn't loving it, but I thought it's okay. It's looking bad, but there's really no such thing as bad art because even pages like these are an opportunity to learn and experiment. And that experience inevitably leads to good art. So I kept at it and just trying to discover something else. And in that process, I thought I would try something else. So I got my Ohuhu acrylic markers and I started to do some outlines and marks, layering more color on top. I think this elevated the contrast of the drawing and made it a little bit more interesting. And even though it's still a very simple thing to draw, it's helping my brain to see things differently and try new color combinations. So still, I learned something. And honestly, by the end of recording this, my tree really grew on me. I like it now. Now we can move to the next way to decide what to draw, and that is simply draw the last thing you ate. In my case, that was easy because as I was working on these pages, I was eating a bowl of fruit. I was having pineapple, papaya, and yellow dragon fruit. I decided out of those three, the dragon fruit or pitahaya in Spanish was the most interesting. So I got another whole fruit to show it to you, and it had a thorn in it still. Can you see? Ouch, that hurt. Anyhow, I started to sketch my fruit and I took some liberties with the composition by adding another fruit sliced in half in the front and some leaves that have nothing to do with the real plant to the sides. The real plant is like a huge cacti that blooms with dozens of these beautiful flowers that open at night. When the flowers die, at the bottom of their stem, they leave the fruit, which is actually full of thorns. With the drawing done, I started to color or paint everything with the markers again, layering color so it would give me the watercolor effect I liked. Again, you're going to see me use both sides of the markers because, like I said before, I really like the look the chisel and the brush nib create together. It's been a while since I've used Copic markers because the last time I owned a few was in college. We used them to add some color to blueprints and hand-drawn perspectives. I studied interior design, by the way. So I have to tell you, these feel similar to what I remember. The rubber brush nib is different from my Ohuhus that I used to color, and it feels different, but it feels perfect for sketching and being more artistic with the markers. And I was being artistic with my drawing of my pitahaya or dragon fruit because those purple leaves came from nowhere. They literally have nothing to do with the real plant. The color is just something I wanted to add. Yeah, the plant is like a cactus, and you saw a bit of the plant on my fruit. It still had a piece of the stem on it. Ecuador is a producer and exporter of this type of dragon fruit, so we find it easily here. But this one is much stronger than the red one on its laxative properties. So if you've only ever had the red before, I would strongly advise you proceed with caution with this one and only have a bite on your first try to see how your stomach handles it. You've been warned because you'll find this on the Andean region, like in Colombia, Peru, and Ecuador. And I don't want you to have any accidents if you're vacationing down here. Anyhow, here's my dragon fruit drawing. I honestly thought it was going to be a flop because of the shape of the fruit, but I liked how it turned out. Next tip to decide what to draw. Draw something that starts with your name's initial. Better yet, draw an animal that starts with the first letter of your name. So for me, that's immediately a P for panda. If you watch my channel for a while, you know I love pandas. But I've created quite a few already, so I thought I would detour slightly and draw a red panda. Maybe I was influenced because TikTok showed me this footage yesterday. I mean, how cute are they? So I got a couple of reference images and I started to draw to get familiar with how they look. Once I had a first drawing of one, I erased it because I wanted to change the style and make it more cartoony instead of going down the realism route. I started to change the features to create a cute character, so I made the eyes bigger, I changed the shapes of the legs and the paws, and I tweaked its expression a lot. I moved the nose way up, and then I was happy with my drawing. Before coloring it, I chose to trace the outline with a paint marker so I would not lose the lines I liked when I erased my pencil mess. I did not use a black marker like I usually do because I did not want a black outline. Once I erased the pencil, some of the pink lines got stained from me moving the pencil lead, so I had to retrace those, and then it was time to color. Because I have a limited color palette in my new set of alcohol markers, I chose to replace the red and use this magenta for my panda, while my own little red creature was on my desk supervising my process. Then I replaced the black fur with brown, and even though this was a flatter drawing, I enjoyed mixing the colors in a painterly way in some of the areas of the bear. These pandas are so cute, they look like pets to me. Let's watch that video again as I color because to me it's just pure happiness. I also decided to replace the white parts of the bear with pink, and after some finishing details with the brown and black markers, I was done. And I am absolutely obsessed with it. I'm gonna call it Raspberry because of the color of the marker, and I love Raspberry. I hope you like her too. Now, on to the next idea for coming up with something to draw. Combine your favorite animal with something you ate. Because I already did a drawing featuring the dragon fruit, now I'm going to use the pineapple that was also on my bowl. I've said before that my favorite animal is a panda, with the white tiger being a close second. But if I'm honest with myself, I'm obsessed with dogs. So I'm going to use this random picture of my dog for inspiration. I absolutely love dogs. I think they are the purest, most loving creatures in the planet. I see them everywhere, and I am always wishing I could cuddle them all. Any breed, they're just all precious to me. And this was probably the drawing that took me the longest on the video. I spent so much time getting its general shape and personality into the drawing. You're going to see me erase a lot, and even with all of that going back and forth that you're seeing, it's not even close to how long it actually took me to sketch him without editing. I changed the eyes and his expression quite a lot to land in something I'd like. At first, I thought about having him wear a pineapple costume, but then I just decided I would just combine him with a pineapple. So he is a puppy that has been born from a pineapple plant, kind of like Cabbage Patch Kids were born from a cabbage patch. For this, I placed a pineapple crown on his head, made his ears longer and less furry to match the long pineapple plant leaves, and I added the texture of the pineapple to his forehead and chest. I outlined everything with a brown colored pencil for a softer look, and then erased the pencil lines, which made such a mess, and started coloring. I layered mostly my yellows and added pops of greens and orange to the fur to mimic the texture of the pineapple. Did a lot of blending for this drawing, and I enjoyed adding some random pops of color to give my pineapple puppy more dimension. I love the watercolory effect, which I think really helped me in supporting the effect of him being a mixed pineapple breed. I finished it with a tiny bit of colored pencils and some random markings on the background, which honestly at first I thought was the way I ruined the page, but I actually ended up liking them, so all good. Here it is, an animal food mix, and I love him. These two pages really have my heart. Next way to choose something to draw is get someone to send you a random emoji. You can literally ask anyone. In my case, I asked in my Instagram stories and I got so many great creativity sparking suggestions. Thank you so much for sending those. But the whale was the one that called me. I don't think I've ever drawn a whale. And you can just go for it and draw it in your own style, however you want. But I chose to simply redraw the emoji as closely as I could, and I tried to adapt it into my own version of the same thing. I started by adding a circle as a background, and then I thought it would be fun to have it sleeping on a cloud. So I drew the curved lines and changed the eye to a closed one. Finally, I drew a crescent moon in the back because adding moons and hearts everywhere is very much my thing. I outlined with the blue pencil, erased the guidelines, and to color it, I decided I would do a pastel rainbow gradient with the markers. So I started doing that. Out of habit, I started with the brush side of the markers, but I definitely feel the chisel works best on this paper. When my gradient was done, I colored the cloud and the background. I also colored the moon with yellow, but added a bit of green and orange for dimension. Then I went back over the cloud with teal and purple to get that watercolor effect, and finished by outlining everything with a purple colored pencil. I also used this color to create a bit of shadows around the whale to soften the illustration. When I colored the background around the moon, I did it wrong and messed with its proportions. So I used an acrylic marker to fix the shape of the moon, and then used one for outlining the circle and another to add stars to the background. And that's it. That's my whale inspired by the whale emoji. And I think it's great. Again, something I've never drawn before. Now, we've done some painterly sketches and some cute drawings, so for the next idea on what to draw, we are going for a pattern. To do mine, I'm going to start by taping out a border with washi tape. After readjusting my tape to create a real square, I colored the whole background in a solid color. Then I started to create lines with the darker shade of the same color. When I create patterns, I usually go for circles or curved lines, but you can create some with anything, any geometric element or anything like flowers, symbols, whatever you want. But in this case, please try not to overthink it. Don't be super symmetrical about it. We are not going for rigid perfection, we are exploring. I broke my rigid square space with different curved lines that vary in width to be more interesting, and then I repeat the rhythm of the first lines with more lines moving within those. I love this process because it's really so relaxing. It gave my brain a creative break. I enjoyed every second of this, and I use this type of drawing as a mindfulness practice to connect with the moment, focusing only on the paper before me and the composition that slowly emerges. And I personally think that if I were to recreate this idea on canvas, it would be a beautiful piece of art. So why not? Let me create some mock-ups for you to enjoy that vision as well. That was the last tip I wanted to share today, and I truly hope at least one of these help you choose what to draw and bring order to your packed creative brain too. We created a pattern, asked for an emoji for inspiration, mixed an animal with food, drew something that starts with our initials, and made art by reimagining what we see every day through our windows. If you like these and want me to share more creative prompts, let me know because I can think of plenty of them. Please remember to like the video if you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next Friday with some fresh creative ideas. Have the most wonderful day. Bye!